Good evening, everybody. I declare the meeting open and welcome to the first meeting at the City of Kwinana that's actually being live streamed to all our viewers at home and recorded in accordance with the City's live streaming and recording council policy. Elected members, just a reminder that before you do speak now, if you could remove your masks. I'd like to call upon Councillor Barry Winmar for the acknowledgement to country.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're on Noongar country today and pay respects to elders past and present. Ngalak nyeling kurlang kura ngalak noich neja Noongar boja. Noongar murat jerpan yining neja ngalak kwabrak Noongar boja kurlang. From the beginning of time to the end, this is Noongar country. Noongar people have been graceful keepers of our nation for many, many years. Ngala jerpan mamba boja ngalak bala mamba kwab. Ngala kot jerpan nija ngala mai nyining Noongar boja. We respect the earth, our mother, and understand that we belong to her. She does not belong to us. In all her beauty we find comfort, well-being and life that creates a home for everyone that has become a keeper of Noongar country. Look, listen, understand and embrace all the elements of Noongar country that is forever our home. Kai wanju ngan bari winma, wajak baladong maman, ngan kurt jerpun. Nunuk nija Noongar boja, dajli wangani noach Noongar boja. Hello and welcome. My name is Barry Winmar. I'm a Wajak Baladong man. My heart is happy as we're gathered on Noongar country and speaking here on Noongar country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winmar, and I'd also like to acknowledge that we meet here on the land of the Noongar people and pay our respects to their elders past and present. I'd now like to call upon Councillor Michael Brown to read the dedication.
Thank you, Your Worship. May we, the elected members of the City of Kwinana, have the wisdom to consider all matters before us with due consideration, integrity and respect for the Council Chamber. May the decisions made be in good faith and always in the best interest of the greater Kwinana community that we serve.
Thank you. Item 4, we do have one apology tonight, and it's a late apology from Councillor Dennis Wood, and we have a leave of absence previously approved, and that's for Councillor Sherilyn Wood. There are no members of the public in attendance. There is no petitions, representations and deputations. Item 7.1 is the confirmation of minutes held on our meeting of the 9th of March 2022. Are there any issues with those minutes? If not, would somebody like to move that way? Thank you. Moved Councillor Kearney, seconded Councillor Winmar. Anybody wish to speak to those minutes? If not, I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 8 is declarations of interest. So I've received one from Councillor Matthew Rouse. Councillor Rouse?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I have a impartiality interest in item 18.1, the budget variations. My wife is the General Manager of the RSC in charge of sponsorships for the RSC, and as the budget variations to update the budget for excuse me, a new grant to be received from the RSC. Partiality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? Thank you. Item 9, any requests for leave of absence? There is nothing in item 10, 11, 12, 13 or 14. Item 15.1 is a policy review for the local commercial support grants, and you've seen some alternative amendments circulated previously. Are there any questions on this item? And have you all had the opportunity to read the amendments, which are mainly just some typographicals or commas, etc.? Thank you. Would somebody like to move that way? Move Councillor Rouse, second Councillor Winmar. Councillor Rouse, do you wish to speak on the item?
Just briefly, Your Worship, as a member of the selection panel, I'm in favour of the motion to adopt those modifications to the local commercial support grants policy. As outlined in the officer's report, the home-based business sector in the city is expanding, and more of our residents are turning to home-based businesses for their goods and services. So, and the needs of these home-based businesses are to businesses that they need to grow different from those of the retail sector. So it's only appropriate that the policy evolves to reflect that change. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Winmar. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 16.1 is the objections unless specified conditions are met for the firework event notice at the Perth Motorplex, Kwinana Beach on Saturday the 9th of April 2022. Is there any additional information required? Any questions? If not, we have a recommendation. Moved Deputy Mayor. Seconded Councillor Brown. Deputy Mayor? Councillor Brown? Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 17.1 is a road dedication for Wellard Road duplication project, Wellard Road from Miller Road to Bertram Road. Is there any questions? If not, we have a recommendation. Would somebody like to move that way? Move Councillor Winmar. Seconded Councillor Rouse. Councillor Winmar, would you like to speak on this item?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. The planning by the staff and city officers is in line with the protection of that area, and also takes into consideration the buffer zones to ensure that the area is maintained for future use. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Rouse? Anybody wish to speak against? Not, I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 18.1 are our budget variations. Are there any questions on those variations? If not, we have a recommendation. Would somebody like to move that way? Move Councillor Kearney, seconded Deputy Mayor. Councillor Kearney, do you wish to speak on this item? Deputy Mayor? Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 18.2 are accounts for payment for the month ending 28th of February 2022. Are there any questions on those payments? If not, we have a recommendation. Would somebody like to move? Moved Councillor Rouse, seconded Councillor Winmar. Councillor Rouse, would you like to speak on the item? Councillor Winmar? Anybody wish to speak against? Shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. Item 18.3 is our policy review for the live streaming and recorded council meeting. Is there any questions arising? If not, we have a recommendation. Would somebody like to move that? Thank you. Sorry, just one moment. I had put through a couple of changes, so they've been amended?
Yep.
Right, thank you. So you'll move those with the amendments, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And seconded, thank you, Councillor Brown. Do you wish to speak on the item, Deputy Mayor? Councillor Brown? Anybody wish to speak against? I shall put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? So carried. There is nothing on item 19 through to 21. Item 22 is reports to the elected members. Deputy Mayor?
Just briefly, Your Worship, I attended the citizenship along with yourself and a number of other councillors. We welcomed 49 new citizens to the city. I also attended the Senior Citizens Association monthly meeting on Monday, and there was some discussion about the entrance to their building in relation to making it more friendly to the street. which also will provide, I guess, easier access for people entering in the building. So I believe that a city officer was there meeting with them to come up with a budget allocation, I guess. I do note, though, the seniors being compliant towards the COVID restrictions was a little lapsed. So, but I did have a conversation with them about that, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Winmar.
Thank you, Worship. I undertook the duties that required me in my position, and also convened a meeting with local Aboriginal organisations. They reported numbers in positive COVID cases in the Aboriginal community, and coming up with a response plan in relation to delivering contactless support packs, which is in the process of being conducted, and that's going to be conducted over the next month until we get some support from through some federal grants around that. So we're working closely with families that have been affected, and obviously looking at ways to keep them in connection with the rest of the community. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Rouse. Councillor Brown.
Yes, Your Worship. So last Tuesday, it was a real... So last Tuesday, it was a real privilege to join my fellow council members at Medina Hall for another fantastic citizenship ceremony, where a number of community members made their pledge of commitment and officially became Australian citizens. And yesterday, through my role in the Coburn Sound Management Council, I attended a workshop with the WAMSI Coburn Sound Science Program, Westport, and a number of regional stakeholders, where we were introduced to the objectives and methods for each of the socio-economic research projects that are currently underway to inform the Westport development. These projects included assessing community values for changes in the local environmental condition, opportunities and impacts for recreational fishing from the Westport development, research into recreation, amenity and aesthetic values, and research into the development of a benefit-cost framework for environmental port design features. As part of this workshop, the various stakeholders, including the City of Kwinana, have been invited to engage with the researchers directly as these projects and the Westport development move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kearney.
I also attended the citizenship. Also, we had our first disability and inclusion meeting for the first time this week, which went really well. And I would like to give my condolences to the Slinger family on the passing of Joel. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no, there's nothing on item 23. 24, there are quite a few Merrill announcements, and I'm happy to table those for you to go through. However, I'd just like to touch upon a few of those. The CEO and I attended the National Growth Areas Alliance National Congress, which was held in the city of Wyndham, just on the outskirts of Melbourne. We attended the full-day conference online. There were actually only one West Australian delegate, I think because of COVID, but there were certainly many people in attendance and also online. There was some great speakers, certainly an interesting array of speakers, and I do now have the presentations which I'm happy to pass on to you. But I'd just like to touch upon the keynote points made from Mr. Sol Eslake, as you know, quite a well-known economist. And he had a very interesting presentation. Some of the points that came out was that Australia did better than most other countries during the pandemic. Our wages, however, are going backwards. Australia has effectively had 2 recessions over the past 2 years. Households in general have saved, and we now have more in our bank deposits, and there are many who now regret withdrawing funds from their superannuation when that was offered. We were the most brutal to our citizens of any country in the world in relation to the restrictions placed on our citizens, which was an interesting observation. The growth areas have more children under 15 and more residents over 65, yet social infrastructure catering to the needs of this demographic is significantly underrepresented in growth areas. And the issue on migrants, we need skilled migrants because they actually create more jobs than they take away. So a really good presentation, as I mentioned before, and I'll circulate that to you. There was also a presentation from Senator Sarah Henderson, and she was what she was bringing up is that the outer metropolitan growth areas shouldn't act in isolation. We should actually invite and be part of the regional growth areas as well, because our regional growth areas have the same issues that we do, and they're on our doorstep. So I know that the CEO will have a few things to take back to the GAP councils when he meets next time. And of course, the big event was the Gala awards presentation, and I was very proud to hear that the City of Kwinana was announced the NGAA 2002 award recipient in the advocacy category for our work on the Indian Ocean Gateway project, which eventually saw the current government committing to the planning of the Outer Harbour project. There is a media release that will be going out. The award is winging its way over to us. One of our colleagues from Coburn was happy to collect it on our behalf and will be bringing it over. So, look, it's a great story to tell on how the city worked with our stakeholders to bring this legacy project to the notice of the then shadow government, and how this project will be of long-term strategic benefit to Kwinana as well as the southern region of Perth and beyond. A special thanks and acknowledgement goes to our Executive Manager of Governance and Advocacy, Mr Warwick Carter, for all his hard work in preparing the presentation. Yesterday I attended the Smart City Mayors Summit 2002 for the Taipei City. Again, it was online. You may recall those councillors are on council at the time. In 2019, the then CEO and I, as well as our Economic Development Officer, attended the Smart Cities Summit as part of the Southwest Group initiative. So we went as a delegation, and in 2002, last year, I was invited to present at the Mayor's Summit, which I did so online, and again was invited back this year, though as a attendee, not as a presentation. There are 11 mayors who attended the summit, and 33 mayors and deputy mayors online. And I'd just like to touch upon some of the initiatives that some of those speakers talked to. And it was pleasing that many of the initiatives the City of Kwinana was doing in any event through the COVID pandemic period. One of the speakers was from a place called Giria in Poland. The area has 45.5% of the district's area covered by forest, and the speaker discussed how the pandemic, similar to Kwinana, in the sense that the forest covering, and we have the city of trees, so we have a lot of great outdoor areas. So before the pandemic, a lot of time and effort was spent on actively encourage children and the seniors to enjoy the great outdoors. But then ironically, when the pandemic hit, this cohort was, of course, being asked to stay indoors. This caused some problems, which were identified, and the city devised programs aimed at children and youth in relation to the prevention of cyber bullying and internet addiction, which is now being plagued not just in Poland, I would say, but as a result of having to spend so much time indoors. People have become addicted to, online. They also devised a really a great app where residents could report directly to council on maintenance issues that needed addressing. And another initiative was the devising of a Plant a Tree app, where residents could engage with an interactive map and the community could vote for places for trees to be planted within their district. There was also a brief mention of the recent influx and impact of the refugees from nearby Ukraine. There was a deputy mayor from Aix-en-Provence in France, a city of 150,000 citizens. He spoke about a community participation in a reward program, which in some ways had similarities to our Stay Loyal Shop Local initiative. The program would reward with tokens students who spent time with seniors during the lockdown and through the pandemic period, and also assisted cleaning up in their local areas. So through the partnership with local shops, the tokens could then be spent and therefore supporting the local economy. It was certainly some really great initiatives, and I was pleased that I had the opportunity to listen into it. Just a reminder to councillors that we have some upcoming Neighbourhood Day events on Saturday and Sunday. We've all been invited to pop around to many of those. And just following on from Councillor Kearney, for those elected members who served with former Mayor and City Freeman John Slinger, they'll know that for years John and his wife Jackie have looked after their son Joel. And it's with great sadness that I advise today that Joel passed away at home overnight. Joel was 41 years of age. John and Jackie Slinger have been amazing parents to Joel, and their devotion, I'm sure, enabled him to live longer and a fuller life, given his medical condition. Joel was a regular sight in his electric wheelchair, going around the shops. So look, on behalf of the City of Kwinana, I would also like to pass on our sincere sympathy to the Slinger family. So I shall table my report. Now we have one item behind closed doors. Would somebody like to move that way? I will move that way, Your Worship. Move, Deputy Mayor. Seconded to Councillor Winmar. All in favour? Against? So moved. So we will now suspend the recording because it is a behind closed doors item. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. In relation to confidential item 25.1, the officer's recommendation was supported unanimously. Thank you. There are no further items to deal with, and I would like to thank you all for your attendance. You did very well on your first live stream meeting, and good evening, good night.